Good morning, everyone. I hope you are well. So good morning, good morning. So I was just having a quick look down here to make sure that I've actually turned my microphone on. Those of you who are regular on this show know that often there's at least one mistake that I'm making. So hopefully not today. So welcome to Solid Ground. Give me a shout out if you're online. Let me know where you are in the country. I am still in Auckland. There's Chris. G'day, Chris. Chris is telling me already know Chris is from Napier. He says, great to join you this morning. So Chris, lovely to have you on. So yeah, if you're online, if you're following the show, give us a shout out. It's called Solid Ground. It's a double entendre. It's a pun. Obviously, Solid Ground being coffee. I've got my trusty little coffee cup here. One of these days, I'll get a branded one. Family First, of course, or it'll be a McBlog. Will it be a Solid Ground cup? Who knows? But the more important element of Solid Ground, of course, is that we talk the issues of the day live here on the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. We talk live about the issues of the day from a solid ground of good foundations, of good philosophies, good ethics, good faith, good values. And so an important part of all of this, of course, is your views and your thoughts. So if you'd like to comment as the show goes on, please do. The best place to do that is the Family First Facebook page, for the simple reason that the comments there come direct to me. If you're commenting on my Facebook page or in LinkedIn, which you're very welcome to do, I'll get to those later. But if you want to interact live, jump onto the Family First Facebook page and let us know what you're doing. And what you think, if you've got something you want me to discuss, because obviously I've got thoughts in mind. A big part of it, as you can anticipate, will be around Biden's resignation, what that means for New Zealand, particularly anticipating someone like Kamala Harris coming on board as a Democratic nominee. What do we know about her? Let's just put a hint out there. She doesn't stand on much solid ground at all. So yeah, if you want to interact, if you've got questions and comments, jump onto the Family First Facebook. If you want to have those live. Rosie says, good morning from a chilly Taupo. I was just in Taupo, actually, Rosie. Rachel and I went down for a weekend, which is lovely. You've had the Light Festival on there in the park. I don't know what it's called, but in central CBD, which is marvellous. Amanda from Wairarapa, which is fantastic. Penny is in Auckland. Yeah, it's actually not raining, which is nice, isn't it, Penny? Well, not where I am in the eastern suburbs, but it's a little chilly. And Bob, actually, I'm going to show you this, because this is what's happening at the moment. This is Bob hanging out. I'm going to get rid of, there we go. Bob has message. Where is he? Here we go. So this is Bob, as he says. You can see that. Some wit, of course, after seeing Bob's pretending to be the Secret Service, some wit decided to put this up as a suggestion. I think quite accurate, if I might. So anyway, that's us here this morning. Look, a big part is actually this question that's come through from Rosie. Was Biden pushed or jumped? Let's start with that, because really this is the big news at the moment, isn't it, around everything with Biden. And I have to admit, right up front, I'm not going to leave that picture there for too long because they annoy me. I have to admit, I'm happy to put my politics on the table. I had very little time for Biden, and I have almost no time for Kamala Harris. And it's not because they're Democrats per se, it's because of the values that they did not have. And I think particularly with Biden, was a man who tried to talk up his faith and his values, which was fine, but actually they were never on display, whether it was his support of terrible things which are happening to children right through to abortion. The man was, to me, a moral joke. Although I will say about his resignation, I actually do feel a little sorry for him. Take the politics out of the equation for a moment. I actually think it's quite sad, and what is arguably quite cruel, that those closest to him, including probably his wife, have been keeping him in the role and the position when it's clear that he's not been up to it. And saying that he's not up to it is not a political point. Okay, this is not me or other commentators making a suggestion of whether Chris Hipkins or Chris Luxon or Winston Peters are up to the job. It's not that level. It's on a simple human level. It's been very, very clear for a long time now that Biden wasn't up to it, that he had a significant cognitive decline. Now, that obviously manifested itself very clearly in the CNN debate. The mask fell off. You could no longer hide from the fact that he was in serious trouble, that he was really, really struggling. And it's unfortunate, but that's politics too. The number of world leaders, including our own, in the last few weeks have met him of, oh no, he's fine, he's mentally strong. I think that's what Luxon was saying. Sir Keir Starmer was similar in the UK. No, he's great, he's switched on. No, he's not. He might have some lucid moments. I've dealt with people with dementia. They do have their moments, depending, of course, how severe things are. But for Biden, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad, and so I do feel sad for him. I was wrong. I didn't. This is his resignation letter. If you haven't seen it, I expected him to stay. If you follow me on Substack, you'll know I admitted that I'm wrong. I thought he'd stick around. Sorry, just taking a swill of coffee. You can then decide, did I put up the photo of this to hide the fact that I was trying to have a cup of coffee? I thought Biden would stay. And I thought he'd stay for the simple reason that the chaos which is about to ensue for the Democratic Party is going to be very damaging, if not more damaging, than him staying on the ticket. Secondly, he had done a lot of the fundraising. The Biden-Harris ticket have done a lot of the fundraising. And as far as I understand American law, a lot of those funds, if you will, have to stick with that campaign. It just doesn't easily or automatically transfer. Now, it does look like the money should be able to go to Kamala Harris relatively easily. But if you know anything about America, it's a highly litigious country. So that's going to be a lot of fighting of whether that's where the money goes or not. And then there's still the question of who is going to be chosen. Now, obviously, the movers and shakers want Kamala Harris. They're the same ones who pushed Biden out. And that's actually to Rosie's earlier question. Excuse me. Was he pushed or jumped? Look, he was pushed, in my opinion. I mean, look, I don't know. I wasn't there at his home in Delaware. But, for all intents and purposes, what you see is a man who was intending to run. Now, whether he was lucid about that or not is a separate question. But he was very, very clear that he wished to run for president. He believed, and I think genuinely, he believed that he's the only man who could defeat Trump. So he did not want to go. Obviously, circumstances from obviously the shooting, the attempted assassination of Trump, right through to obviously his disastrous debate, has had a major influence. But what's also clear, and ironically within the Democratic Party, is that the powers that be, so not the general membership, but senior elected officials like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, celebrities like George Clooney, and others, the Clinton family, I would argue, because they came out so quickly after his resignation. I mean, literally within an hour or so of his resignation letter, they were talking about the next step. So long and short, the hierarchy, the prince and princesses, if you will, of the Democratic Party pushed Biden out. And bear in mind that the delegates of the Democratic Party, the ordinary men and women, had voted for him. They wanted him as their candidate. So he's been pushed out. So definitely to that part of the question. And now those same people, by the look of it, want Kamala Harris in. And part of that, I don't actually think they rate her. I have to be honest. I don't think there's much to rate about her, to be honest. She's been an absolutely useless vice president. Before we get on to a few other aspects, which she's been completely useless. But for the Democratic Party, she's at least known, having been the vice president, means that she has some coverage. Two, it does seem that she'll be able to basically pick up the monies which the Biden campaign had. And of course, she plays perfectly into identity politics. That's exactly the line that has already been played, and it's the line that she will go down over and over again, of why she should be elected. Not on merit, because, as I say, there is little merit in someone like Kamala Harris. She was meant to be responsible for the border, and it's been an absolute disaster. And that's not a political statement, that's a statement of fact. There are literally millions of illegal migrants crossing into the United States. No country can sustain that. And it's the big issue which the Trump-Vance ticket are running on. Secondly, her record as a district attorney, we would think of it as a Crown prosecutor, isn't particularly exemplary. And as I say, she's been big into this whole identity politics stuff, as far as asking people to fund bail for the violent protesters during the Black Lives Matter. This will all come out more and more. It's not hidden, but be absolutely assured, being American politics, it will be drawn out. So, this bail thing, she's going to take a big step, if you will, about how she's the candidate of law and order. But it just doesn't stack up, as I say. She's from California, she's woke, she's liberal. No effect on crime when she was the district attorney there. She basically did nothing in the Senate. And as I say, with the Black Lives Matter protests, when they turned violent, she was promoting the bail for these people enacting violence and looting and attacking police. So she's quite a piece of work, our Kamala Harris. And then to boot, she's a abortionist, or pro-abortionist of the highest level. No moderation here. And look, we're on solid ground. We're family first. We're pro-life. So we've got a real problem with the likes of Joe and Kamala. But if we thought Joe Biden was bad, she's worse. She is very much an abortion right up to birth as a federal right. No problem whatsoever. She's also a woman who has aggressively tried to prosecute pro-life people and groups. So as I keep saying, she's quite a piece of work, this Kamala Harris. My prediction from here, despite me thinking Joe wouldn't step down, my prediction is that this guy will get through. And not just because of this photo, though. I think images, to be honest, if you want to contrast, I didn't do this deliberately, but now that I'm looking at them, when you look at two images, I think this one is going to appeal more to the American people. This said, Kamala will be able to make a big thing of her being younger, a new generation, and so forth. And that makes perfect sense, by the way. That makes absolutely perfect sense. So we'll see where it goes. But I think at the end of the day, and again, I was wrong about Biden stepping down, I think if Trump and Vance or the Republicans can keep to the broader issues, they'll win. In other words, instead of talking about her being the first black woman president, or that she's younger than Trump, or that she's into killing babies, if they are only talking about that, the Democrats, then look, that will help some of their base. But actually, overall, if Trump and others are focused on the economy and jobs and securing the border, then I think the Republicans will get through. In fact, there's a risk for the Democrats that you'll see both the House, so like the Parliament and the Senate, their upper house will also go to the Republicans. So look, fascinating times ahead. Now, a few comments because I can. So Amanda says, and I'm going to cough, excuse me for a moment. There we go. Says, totally agree. It was cruel what they did to him. I didn't like his stance in politics, but no one should be used. Yeah, look, that's my take as well, Amanda. I don't like a lot of his politics. I don't like a lot of what he's said and done, particularly the use of what they call lawfare. To me, he and Kamala have used the Department of Justice to pursue their own agendas. Again, touching on the pro-life side, they have been aggressively pursuing and where they can prosecuting pro-lifers. They've been harassing Catholics for simply being Catholic. They see it now as a new form of potential terrorism, that you might be a Catholic. I mean, how ridiculous is that? But I'm not making it up, by the way. Good morning to Philippa. So Debbie's commented as well, and I'm just struggling to get that one up. So there's going to be a wild ride. Absolutely. So Debbie's right on that. Anita, now this one's come up. Anita said it's all about the money. Yep, I think that's a big part of it. Now this one, there we go. I've got it sorted. Debbie says Kamala reminds me of Hillary. Yeah, well, I think there's elements of that. There's a real nastiness, isn't there? It's yeah. Rosie says is neither use nor ornament. Yeah, well, I think in some way she will be ornament. She's going to well, Amanda's right. I mean, look up the YouTubes and TikToks of her. It's. I suppose we've got to be careful. The one thing I would counsel is I think we rightly need to look at their character and what they have and haven't done. I think it's always that funny balance and tension, if you will, to make sure we're not becoming too personal. And that's not a critique of your good self. Who was it? Amanda. Sorry, Amanda. I just think, and I have to do it myself because there are times I was showing my family something last night. It was a video, and I can't easily show it here today. But it's her being interviewed about visiting the border. And she's talking about, we have visited the border and all of this. We are doing that. We are visiting. And the reporter points out to her that she's never been to the border. And, she's caught out lying. So we've got to call her out on that. And then, as you'd expect, she just laughs, and then one of her inane sentences. So we have to call that out, but it's always that balance to make sure that we're not being nasty, for want of a better word. So yes, there's my picks, there's my thoughts. Let's see where the coming weeks go. It'll be interesting to see whether someone else challenges. The Democratic Party will be working overtime, absolute overtime at the moment, to ensure that she doesn't have any challenges. They will want to go into their Democratic convention in a couple of weeks' time, a little bit like the Republicans one. Unified, a single, simple message. If it's all about whether Kamala Harris is being challenged, that's going to be a big issue for them. But time will tell. Time will tell. Hey, look, in a couple of other bits and pieces of news, and I'm just skimming my segment here because I have lots of little choices. So returning more back. Actually, no, I'm not going to. I'll just stick. No. I've got so many thoughts all of a sudden. So I'm going to take a coffee, which gives me 2 seconds to ponder what I'm going to do next. There you go. Actually, I will switch briefly to New Zealand. I just thought I'd draw your attention to this because I think 2 weeks ago, I was mentioning, I think it was the Herald as well, had run a puff piece on a woman somewhere. I think it might have been up north. No, I'm mixing it up. But long and short, they'd run a series of puff pieces on people being on OnlyFans, which is basically prostituting themselves. And I was just struck, this popped up last week, another one. I don't know, what it just strikes me as one thing. Well, it's not news, actually. That's probably my fundamental point. None of this is news. This is just unpaid promotion of basically a prostitutive or a pornography site. So this is at least the second story that I've seen now run in the Herald, basically advertising OnlyFans with the message being, hey, look, do whatever you want to do in your job, but if you want to sell your body and images of your body and so forth, then it's great. There's no problems whatsoever, which is exceptionally wrong and exceptionally sad. And I say exceptionally wrong, not necessarily on the moral front, because I don't think that's particularly good either, but it's not good for one's psyche or health. But again, it's just an example of how things are being promoted in media, which is pretty sad. I think. Then we've got this one here in New Zealand as well. I don't know if you've picked up on this, so it's always good to keep a little focus on New Zealand. So the government's looking to tighten up how much the judges can reduce sentences. So you may remember one of the really terrible cases that came out last year of a young man who had, in this case, raped 4 women. And you heard that right, 4 women. And he ended up with 9 months home detention or something pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And a big part of it is that our judges can reduce sentences, a little bit like that story headline is indicating. That, oh, well, if the person pleads guilty, if they say they're remorseful, if they're young, if their family promises to wrap support around them, and all manner of other excuses, the judges can reduce the sentences. Can be 60%, 70% of a sentence can get wiped out, and you end up with these absurdities of people doing quite vile crimes and basically paying nothing for it. So the government's suggesting that actually you can't discount more than 40% of a sentence. So if it's a 10-year sentence, you could reduce it down to 6, if I've got my math right. So I personally just thought that was a good idea. Just wanted to put that out there, not for political promotion, but just the concept is right. If you do the crime, then you should do the time. It doesn't mean you're locked away for life, but actually you should do the time, particularly for that level of crime. And we've also got the 3 strikes legislation coming back. Family First will be speaking into that. You'll know that Bob in particular has been pushing very hard that we need the 3 strikes legislation, has done some really good work illustrating that it only applies to the worst of the worst. But there's still a few problems on the current proposals from the government, including that they want to clean slate all existing strikes. So if they put this new law in, anyone who's already had a strike starts afresh, which to us just doesn't seem quite right. But again, I just draw your attention to these things. You know, if we want a strong, stable society and a safe society for our families to live in, then we need to be prudent. And I think this particular idea is a good one. But you notice the bias coming through here, that it's straitjacketing the judiciary. Well, it might be lost on media, and it's certainly lost on some judges, but they don't rule the roost. Okay, Parliament does. In this country, Parliament is sovereign. And if you're like me, you're getting a little bit sick of activist judges. We've already seen it as they've reinterpreted tikanga into New Zealand law, how they have decided that Parliament they don't think has the ultimate voice, and at the same time they're releasing or not sentencing people sufficiently, while they usually hide away behind the walls of their own houses. It's pretty pathetic. And so it's about time that actually we put some restraints around the judiciary. And they might call it a straitjacket. I call it democracy. You elect members of Parliament to make the laws, not a bunch of unelected judges. And as I say, at the moment, they're making a whole raft of very stupid decisions. And I think, you know, there's a great comment here that's just come through from Rosie. Don't do the crime. And that's a part of it too, because some of the sub-narratives you're getting is, oh, well, this is a treaty breach if they lock these people up. It's going to disproportionately affect Māori and Polynesians and others. Well, yeah, if it is, don't do the time. Don't do the time. And Amanda's asking if I talked about Susie Wiles. Yeah, I did. Where did I do it? I think I did a talk on... Sorry about my voice again. Wait a second. There we go. I actually did on my radio show on a Friday morning. I just thought it was fascinating with the Susie Wiles. So for those who are wondering who, she was the lady who, microbiologist at Auckland University, who was lockstep with Jacinda during COVID and supporting the lockdowns and so forth, and famously caught out for herself going to the beach with a friend when she wasn't meant to. But what was striking, she took the university to court because she was getting harassment for pushing her views. And let's be clear, the really vile level harassment was not appropriate. So she was receiving death threats, for example. I mean, that's just completely beyond the pale. But one can't help but think a big part of her court case, and it's what I was saying on Reality Check, it's a classic bullying behaviour. She was very happy to push her view into society, but anyone who was critiquing her, oh no, can't have that. And so, you know, under health and safety legislation, she took the university to court. And what's ironic, of course, is that Susie Wiles was one of the core academics who then started abusing other academics around the Mataranga Maori stuff. So, you know, she's all for, again, pushing her views. But if anyone starts pushing back, she cries victim. It's the classic bully profile. You see it all the time. So, yeah, free speech for them, but not for others. So, you know, Amanda's nailed it with the question and comment. And so this is why a lot on the left, and look, Susie's very much of the left, they are for free speech for themselves and not others. And I think in many ways, Amanda, and for those tuning, that was at the heart of this case, which is sad. So she's won it partly. Important to note, they feel the university should have done more to protect her, but the court stressed that her free speech was not impinged, which is really good. Jumping quickly back to America, give me another second, I really am losing my voice. As you can imagine, a big part of my role now at Family First and elsewhere is doing lots and lots of interviews. And so I probably talk too much. I've already done a couple of interviews this morning, which is great. And I've got some ones this evening because I often do international guests. And so I have to work around their time frames. Hey, but jumping back quickly to American politics before a couple of other and very positive things. I just thought this was very telling again of why the likes of Biden and Harris are problematic. They want to change the Supreme Court. And isn't this just absolutely typical of the left wing? So at the moment they make a big song and dance about Trump having appointed people to the court. Well, let's be really clear. He didn't do anything illegal. It's the president's prerogative to put in whoever they want. If this was Joe Biden, he'd be stuffing the court, as you've already done, with tokens and with ultra-liberal people. And that's the heart of this particular little comment, is that the left, and you see it here in New Zealand too, the Green Party is a great example. They only want democracy. They only want courts when it goes their way. So the fact that the court doesn't do what the woke liberals want makes them upset. And what do woke liberals do? When they're not winning, they try to screw the scrum. And so, look, the reforms haven't been published, but a big part of what they seem to want to do is to appoint more judges. Again, classic left-wing, classic progressives. Let's not have 9 judges now, let's have 12. And let's stuff them with our people. And it, again, hints of that Susie Wiles and other dynamics we've talked about. One rule for them, a different rule for others. And I don't have the image here, but it was interesting. They were trying to make the point the other week about there's only 3 really individuals on the court, which are all the liberal judges. All the rest are just Trumpians. But what was really, really striking is that actually the conservative justices do not vote as a bloc. The 6 of them vote differently often. Now, generally they come together, but they vote differently. But the 3 liberal judges have never voted differently. They are a bloc. And so that tells you everything you need to know. But again, it's just a small thing, but is it just not illustrative of both American and New Zealand politics? Liberals, the woke, progressives are all for democracy. They're all for the court system when they're getting their way. They're all for the referendum on cannabis when it's going their way. But the moment it doesn't, well, the referendum's invalid. Democracy's failed. And in this case, we've got to change the court. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting. On a more positive note, I just thought this was a lovely little story. I mean, it's very, very sad that the child is sick, but isn't it remarkable what we can do for the unborn? So they've detected a heart condition, but this amazing family are going to keep that child, and they're going to be able to do these surgeries to give the child life. And there's a picture of it. This is further down. I'm just taking, if you will, screenshots from the webpage. You can look up the headline. But I just think it's a wonderful story, not only of life, of family, but also what remarkable things we can do these days to look after people. Because, of course, the unborn, they're people. Just a lovely story. A lovely story. Yeah, I'm just looking at last comments. There's just this one from Amanda's, I think, and then I'll finish up, partly because I really am losing my voice, which is never a good start. Amanda nails it. And by the way, this is a problem that goes across political parties. One of the things that used to annoy me, and I probably annoyed my colleagues when I was in Parliament on the centre-right side, is that they would be wanting to pass certain ideas, and you'd say, have you not thought this through? It's a little bit, if I might, I'm going to weigh into the controversy because I can, ACT at the moment is making a big thing about the treaty, and they're wanting to pass legislation to define what the treaty is. Well, that's all well and good. It's not something I completely agree with. And part of the reason is Amanda's point. When you change the laws, others can then go about and change them. In other words, ACT sits there puffing its chest out, wanting to redefine. Well, that's good. So if they get kicked out in 2 years, the Labour Party is going to come in and use that piece of law and define it a different way and make things even worse. So, I don't know, politicians often will act in self-interest and in the immediate interest. And I think most of us can appreciate that prodding, because what we want is a bit of vision and a little bit of long-term thinking. But anyway, don't get me started. Hey, a few last things. Never forget that he's going to take another swig of coffee before he does lose his voice. Family First does an array of talks, actually a media presence now. So there's Straight Talk every Monday night. We didn't have it this Monday or last night because Bob's overseas travelling. But that's a live panel discussion, a bit like this, except there's 6 people. Bob himself does something called McBlog most mornings. Again, not at the moment because he's travelling, but you can follow him on his Facebook. But he looks at the issues of the day and provides some commentary. My colleague Tumby does Pulse Point. She takes at least 5 stories of the week and puts them together and talks about what's going on. Really worth checking out. I do something called Family Matters. It's a usually weekly podcast. So it's not live like this, but it's a weekly podcast. I just sat down recently with Sam Garraway. He's the young man on the right from Christians Against Poverty, or CAP. We talk about their work. Look, quite inspiring. So go to the Family First website or jump onto the likes of YouTube. You can check that out. And then for blatant self-promotion, I do a usually weekly Substack, it's called. It's like an op-ed. So I write these op-eds. It's free. It's called On Point. I've actually just done one on the Kamala Harris Biden situation, so I write those weekly. And for many of you, you'll know that I do a weekly radio show as well with Reality Check. I'm there from 10 a.m. till midday every Friday, talking with various guests. I've got a great show being lined up this week. So there is so much going on, and Amanda, bless her, has given me some excellent advice. Straight after this, I'll be heading to the kitchen to make myself a very nice warm cup of tea with a lot of honey. I'm also a great user of something called Vocal Zone. It's like a lozenge. It's very, very good. So I will restore my voice. So guys, we've touched on a few things this morning. Obviously, the big news has been around our dear friend Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I said, unfortunately, if you come from a solid ground perspective in terms of good ethics, faith and values, they fail the test. That doesn't mean that Trump and Vance pass them with flying colours either. But particularly when we look at issues of religious freedom, we look at the areas of life, so being pro-life. I'm afraid to say that Harris is even worse than Biden, if you thought that was impossible. But guys, in the meantime, you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to chatting to you guys next Tuesday. As I say, if you want, tune in to RCR on Friday morning. I'll be talking to a variety of guests there. But you have a great week. And Bob, if you're still listening, stay safe there in America.